How can you survive a marriage these days? I wanted to pass on some vital information that was given to me by my father, a guy who's been married for over 35 years, a guy who managed to keep his marriage together. And I wanted to point this out because, again, this is something that a lot of you guys want to know. You want to know, what can I do to protect myself better? What can I do to make sure that my odds are better, that I have more success, that I'm more likely to have success than failure? And there's a couple of things I wanted to point out here. The first thing we're going to talk about is prenup. So let's get started with that. And when people hear the word prenup, they automatically think that a prenup is bad for the relationship, for the future marriage, because a prenup indicates lack of trust. And that's true and not true. I mean, a prenup is in place, yes, because you want to have certainty, because you want to make sure that, whenever happens, when divorce happens, you know exactly what you're going to get, and your wife knows exactly what she's going to get out of it. And that's really important to know. But it's also about protecting what you already have, and it's also about setting expectations. When we talk about the prenup, and let's say you bring assets with you to the marriage, and in most cases, the person, or even if it's both of them, whatever assets they bring with them into the marriage are assets that they keep themselves. They're not going to be split, because why would they? You acquired those assets before marriage, so you're not going to split them, unless you want to be very generous for whatever reason, but most of the times people don't do that. And that's something you mentioned in the prenuptial, the pre-marital agreement. And for assets that were acquired during marriage, during the time you were together, you can set expectations in terms of how much each party gets in the event that you both split up, divorce. And that amount depends on how much you added, how much she added, and whatever both parties think is going to be fair. Because a prenuptial agreement is, again, an agreement. And if she doesn't agree with your suggestion, then you're not going to have an agreement. It's very simple. Now, if you were the provider, if you brought 100% of the cash, if you added 100% of the income, or even if it's 90% during the time that you were together. If that's the case, then, from a legal perspective, you could ask for more on average than your wife would get, because, again, you were doing these things, and if it's a lot of money that you make every month, even if you make tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars every month, if you have significant income, you want to make sure that you are protected and that you are not being taken to the cleaners. That's just how it is. It's really funny how a prenup really is like natural cleaning, natural cleansing. It's a process that, gets rid of the parasites. Because if a person's only after your money, they want at least 50% of whatever you both created. If you added a ton and she still wants 50%, yeah, she's the housewife, she's taking care of the kids. She should get something, and that's really important for a premarital agreement. But on the other hand, if you made a ton of money and she wants 50% of that, and she's not going to sign it, or there's no room for her to negotiate that amount, that's something you would want to be worried about, because a person that's after you for the right intentions would never care a whole lot about how much money she's going to get out of it. They're only going to care about survival, whatever you can help them to do, as much as you want also survival in the aspect that she's going to take care of the kids, because you're a man, you can't do everything on your own. So with that being said, it needs to be fair. If you think, you deserve 70% of whatever you created during the time you were together, if you think you deserve 80 or 90%, she needs to be okay with that, because, again, it needs to be signed, and you need to have a legal person to put this together and make it a legal document. Whatever you both think is fair, and that's really important. You need to be okay with it, and you're not going to get 100% because it's not an agreement. It can't be a one-sided deal. You can't say, I'm going to take 100% of whatever we made, even if you added 100% of the money. That would not be an acceptable document. So even if this should go to court later on, if it's 100% or even very close to it, you're not going to win it, because it's not a fair document to begin with. It's not a fair contract to begin with, And you also want to talk about responsibilities like child custody, like child support. How much is she going to get? Or, whatever else you want to bring into that's going to create more clarity. Now, some people would ask, why would you even get married to begin with? Because in the West, getting married is expensive. We know we're talking tens of thousands of dollars, unless the people you invite, of course, bring a little document with some nice, sweet cash in it to the wedding, so you can finance it that way, like it is in Asia. The people who are getting married, they're going to ask their relatives, their friends to bring that sweet little envelope filled with money to the wedding. So they're going to use that money that they received from friends and family to actually pay for the wedding and their honeymoon. It's very common to do that in Asia. In the West, it happens too often, not all of the times. It really depends, but it would be a good way to recoup some of the money. But still, a marriage is expensive. The ceremony is expensive. The wedding is expensive, right? Honeymoon is expensive. But what's also expensive is the divorce. It costs anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 to get divorced. We're talking, numbers that we see in the United States. It would be perfectly acceptable to not get married, just live under the same roof and raise children this way. It's very possible. It's very common. It's actually more common today than it was 20, 30 years ago. Why? Well, because people don't want to get married. They're scared of divorce. There's more costs involved. There's more headaches involved. And people just want to stay boyfriend and girlfriend. And it's still the same legal responsibility in the event that you have children, because your children are always your children. And whether you're married or not doesn't really change how much child support you pay to your wife to take care of the children that you had together. That doesn't change anything, right? But it changes the money that's invested, and it changes the pain that's involved in the event that you should get divorced. In Texas, we have something called common law partner, which applies to couples that have been together for a certain number of years, that lived under the same roof, and they both acknowledge another as their couple. So very much the same concept applies. In the event that they break up and they've been together, say, for 10 years, whatever they earned during the time, whatever they created, would be split equally among the two parties. A really important factor is to stay dominant. And I'm not talking to the average guy. I'm not talking to an unconventional relationship where the woman, is the one who goes to work, brings home the money, and the guy is the, stay-at-home dad, takes care of the children, the household. These relationships are also more common these days, but what's more common is, especially in the East, is that the man makes the money and the woman takes care of the household and the children, and that's how it is. For a relationship to work, there has to be balance. We all know that. And there also has to be one person that's more dominant, one person that's more passive. It doesn't mean you should undermine your wife all the time. It's not what I mean. No, that's not what it's about. It's about having a, normal, I should say a conservative relationship, because again, you're the provider, she's the caretaker, and if that's the case, then one person has to be more dominant, the other person has to be more passive. Because from what I have seen from most relationships, if not all relationships that have failed, they both can take an ounce of different thought, an ounce of a different opinion, and that's why they split up, because they're both so dominant they almost kill another. Think about dominance as a scale from 0 to 100. No person is exactly at 100, no person is exactly at 0, but maybe it's going to be 70-30, and you always have to listen to your wife, what's important to her. I don't 100% buy into the happy wife, happy life, or happy girlfriend, happy life kind of theory. It applies for a good amount of the time, meaning you want to make sure you're not being selfish, that your wife, your girlfriend's being taken care of, that you listen to her, what's important to her. One of the most important things that you can do, which I recommend to anybody, okay, and I've seen that again from family, I've seen that from friends. It doesn't mean the relationships failed. In fact, a lot of them prospered because they were smart about the whole process. But what you want to do is to, put some money aside for yourself. It doesn't need to be money, it can be assets. And when we're talking about that, we're not talking about things that your wife or your girlfriend, or if you're a girl and you're listening to this video, not things that your husband, your boyfriend has access to. If you have a bank account, you should have one mutual bank account, an account that you use to pay the expenses, but then you should also have your private bank account and private assets as much as your partner should. And the reason for that is, again, that you want to have something on your own. You don't want to be 100% tied to somebody financially, because why would you? It's nice to have your own cushion. It's nice to have your own money. Definitely have your own bank account. Definitely have your own assets. Unless, of course, you have some kind of really, tight prenuptial agreement that forbids that. But that's again something you can negotiate in the contract, or also in the conversations that you have before you get married, or even when you're just boyfriend and girlfriend. You gotta find ways to communicate. Now, what's really important is when it comes to this, I wouldn't even tell them much, because you gotta have some things that you keep to yourself. What would happen if your partner is a financial maniac, a person that spends all your money, a person that's irresponsible, and you get to learn this years after you've been together, and she burned through most of the cash? Well, if that was the case and you had put something aside, then at least you have access to that money that you put aside, even if she burned the rest. That's a really important concept, I believe. So whatever you do, you can have it offshore, you can have a private bank account in your country, you can have precious metals, you can have physical assets, tangible assets that you have stored in a safety deposit box, not at home, of course, but in a place that's more obscure, a place that only you know about or other family members know about, but not her. And then it sounds probably horrible that I'm not telling you, well, you should, hide all the money from your wife and never tell her about it. No, that's not what I mean. But smart people put something aside. Smart people have their own bank account. They don't tie their assets 100% together because it's really not smart if you do that. What else can you do to survive a marriage these days? And are there any other suggestions that we could potentially discuss in the future video? If so, leave a comment below and let us know. Subscribe now and turn on alerts to never miss any of my future nomadism, dating, and business advice videos. I highly recommend that you grab a free copy of my latest ebook, The Nomad Elite Income Booster, your go-to guide for creating passive income streams using the internet. All you need to do is click on the link below the video. And if you got some more time left, check out these videos. Thank you for watching.